United stand. It is good to be back. It is good to be back in Manchester in the studio, and we have so much to talk about on today's afternoon show. So strap yourselves in because we have Donnarumma to talk about. His price has been set. I personally think for a keeper of his quality, it is a steal. I understand it's big wages. I understand sometimes the stuff behind the scenes, but he's a fantastic keeper. And I think Manchester United, when opportunities arise, you've got to be attentive towards them. Sir Alex Ferguson used to do it back in the day. And I think Manchester United should be looking at this closely, especially with our keeper situation. Benjamin Sesko signing his contract today, set to be unveiled tomorrow. Got a little bit I want to talk about on that because my last shows, I didn't know whether Sesko was going to be here or not. We've got some information about him signing and his medical at Carrington, but I also just want to talk about now that it's over the line, I can get excited about this signing. It was never my first choice, but the more research I've done, tried to get myself excited about it, I am excited now, especially when it looks like Manchester United are also simultaneously going for Baleba. And I just want to say, if you were tuning in to my 2 a.m. shows, or if you're a part of the American audience and you were tuning in to my 8 p.m. shows over when we were in the US, I kept talking about Baleba and people kept calling me delusional. I still think it's going to be really tough for us to get him this summer, but there's more news coming out about that and the price that Manchester United would have to pay. And if there is negotiation room, some stuff coming in from Ben Jacobs and also some other reports that are quite positive as well. It's interesting because some people are like putting it out there, it's more for next summer, but then some people are saying it genuinely could be something that goes through this summer if Manchester United get them sales done. And speaking about sales, I have an update on Rasmus Hojlund. Not only has there been an update on Rasmus Hojlund about his loan and his future at Manchester United, there's also been some very harsh words written in the MEN about him, and we'll break that down. Other stuff in the MEN coming out about behind-the-scenes stuff regarding the squad, their feelings towards Amorim, and we have Matthias de Ligt has just done an interview with Manchester United, and I've pulled out some really good quotes from him. Like I said at the time, I was very surprised that he wasn't part of that 6 senior leadership team. Potentially it is because he states himself because he's only 25 and the others in that group do seem to be the elder members of the squad. But I thought he spoke fantastically and I do think he's a future leader and future captain of this club. So some great quotes in there about his expectations for the season and his own personal goals. But everyone, it is absolutely great to be back. Get your comments in, smash the super chats in, smash the like button. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for all the positive, warm welcomes. I keep seeing them. Welcome back, Beth, and we are so back. We are so back. If we manage to get Baleba over the line, my head will just fall off. That will be the best transfer window I feel like we've ever had. That might be going too far, but it's definitely the best transfer window that we've had in a very, very, very long time if we manage to get Baleba. We need a striker as well. I mean, I'm going to throw out the question mark straight away. I know we've spoken about this a lot, but I want to hear your reasons why, and I'll give my reasons in a second when we talk about it. But if you could only pick one, if you could only sign one now, a goalkeeper or a midfielder, and let's say that goalkeeper is a first choice like Donnarumma, who I think would just be unreal, or the midfielder would be a first top priority like a Baleba, who I also think would be transformative, which one would you pick if you could only sign one? I'd love to know your thoughts on that because everyone keeps going back and forth and everyone's got different opinions. And to be honest with you, I didn't think we'd sign Cunha and Mbeumo. Never mind Cunha and Mbeumo and a striker and then potentially a Baleba and a keeper. I mean, do you remember when people said Murto madness? I mean, I'm not going to go that far because there was never any madness from Murto. It was madness, but it wasn't in a positive sense. It was literally like sending Manchester United into madness. Like it was, his transfer windows were not good at all. But this summer, I was doubtful. I was very doubtful for how long Mbeumo took. But if we seriously put together a package for Baleba and try for that, I will be very, very, very impressed. But anyway, let's start with the keeper stuff because this is really new, hot off the press news that I want to bring into the show. And it's from our very good friend, Ben Jacobs. By the way, how good's Ben been? I was tuning into the Maud's Ben Jacobs show, I was tuning into the Mark Ben Jacobs show and the Terry Ben Jacobs show, which was yesterday. I thought they were all fantastic. And Ben has just been fantastic this window. Great to have him as part of the channel. But he's actually put out that PSG want at least 26 million for Donnarumma after deciding not to offer him a new deal. As you would have seen this morning, PSG have told Lucas Chevalier that he's going to be their number one keeper going into next season. Donnarumma is not going to stay at PSG to hang around on the bench, and PSG won't want that either. He's up for sale, and the price tag is £26 million. I was looking at Donnarumma, and I thought he was older than what he is. Donnarumma is 26 years old. That is young for a keeper. If Manchester United go and get him for £26 million, that is your keeper for the next 8 to 10 years. That is your keeper sorted. He's absolutely fantastic. Okay, yeah, he's prone to the odd mistake, but in general, he is unbelievable. He's been unbelievable for his country. He's been great for PSG. He's won all the highest honours. He's got, he's got that experience at the highest level. It would be such a huge upgrade on what we currently have. Manchester United would be absolutely set. And stuff like this doesn't come on the market all the time. We know that Ruben Amorim's first choice of a keeper is Diogo Costa. And I would not be surprised one bit if we don't go for a keeper this summer. Onana starts the season, Onana plays the season as our number one, and then we try and move him on next summer and we go for Diogo Costa when we've got more budget to go for a goalkeeper. I would not be surprised one bit because Diogo Costa's not moved this summer. It's unlikely he's going to move at this stage. I would not be surprised one bit if Manchester United revisit the keeper next summer and go for Amorim's number one choice, which we all know is Diogo Costa. But can you afford to wait around? Is this going to cost you them Champions League spots, which I think Manchester United have to be eyeing up and have to be going for? And I tell you what, if we get a midfielder, Amorim doesn't have as much excuse not to be there. So you look at the keeper and you think, do we wait and go for Amorim's first choice and Diogo Costa? But he's going to cost. Diogo Costa's going to cost you about 35 to 40 million next summer, I would imagine. So Donnarumma, who is at the top of his game, 26 years old, I mean, Costa's also a young goalkeeper as well, is available right now for 26 million, and you need a goalkeeper now. It's definitely something Manchester United should at least be exploring. The only thing is Donnarumma's wages are quite high. Let me just get it up exactly. I had it earlier. Let me just get it up exactly because I don't want to get it twisted. But he apparently earns, Donnarumma, £300,000 a week, which Manchester United are just never paying. They're just never paying. We're not paying that for a goalkeeper. Our highest paid player is Bruno Fernandes on 350 grand a week, along with Casemiro. Casemiro is going to be moved on next summer. Everybody else's wages that have come in have been in and around the 100 to 200 grand a week mark. We will not be paying Donnarumma 300 grand a week. Now, when we went for De Ligt, he was on a similar wage at Bayern Munich, and he took a wage cut to actually join Manchester United. I'm pretty sure De Ligt was on 295 grand a week at Bayern Munich, and he's now on 195 grand a week, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that is what De Ligt's wage is at Manchester United, 195 grand a week. So he took basically a pretty big wage cut to come and play for Manchester United. Would Donnarumma be open to doing the same? Like, it's not as if you're asking him, to go from 500 grand a week to 50 grand a week. It's still massive money. It's still very good money for a goalkeeper. And you are playing in the Premier League. You are going to be number one. And there'll obviously be room in the future for that wage to go up if he performs. Probably add-ons, probably bonuses. So it's just the fact that that wage is high. And it's whether Donnarumma would want to take a cut, because there is absolutely no way that INEOS are going offering him 300 grand a week. But other players have done it. It's not around the 300 grand a week mark, but Benjamin Sesko is lowered his wage demands to come to Manchester United over Newcastle. Fabrizio Romano has literally reported that. It's in my notes to bring into the show. Matthias de Ligt took a pay cut to play for Manchester United. There was loads of talk that Brian Mbeumo was going to be on 250, 300 grand a week. He's coming in at 150 grand a week. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that he could take a pay cut, because at the end of the day, Donnarumma is going to want to be playing football. He's going to want to be a first choice. He's not going to want to be hanging around at PSG if he's not number one, which he's literally been told he's not. Chevalier is going to be their number one keeper. So it's something that Manchester United, I think, should at least inquire about. And I personally, it all depends on if you can move on Andre Onana. Because Andre Onana, I'm pretty sure, is on 150 grand a week. You're not going to have Andre Onana on 150 grand a week and then Donnarumma on 200 grand a week. You're just not going to have that. Andre Onana would have to be moved on to bring in Donnarumma on around probably 190, 200 grand a week, if that would be accepted by him and his camp. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it's whether you can move Andre Onana on, and we've got an update on Andre Onana actually to bring into the show. But it's that £26 million, it's going to make Manchester United and it's going to make fans stand up and be like, oh, I never in a million years thought we could sign the likes of a Donnarumma this summer. But for £26 million, it might be worth giving him a bit of a higher wage than you'd want to just for that transfer fee for a keeper that is not even in his prime yet and is absolutely world class in my opinion. So thoughts on that in the chat as well. Ben Niblet says, get Donnarumma, it forces Andre Onana to move on, win-win. You'd like to think so, but what if it doesn't? And then United and INEOS are stuck paying a huge amount of money, basically nearly 400 grand a week on 2 keepers. Like, you just can't do that. If Donnarumma comes in, Andre Onana has to be gone and Manchester United have to know that Onana's going to go as well. Alex Marman says, hi Beth, loving the shirt by the way. We need to prioritise going for Donnarumma. 26 mil will be a bargain for him and I don't trust Onana or Bayindir. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, it came in before on Andre Onana, by the way, that Andre Onana is not expected to play against Fiorentina on Saturday, but he's confident in regaining fitness to play against Arsenal next weekend. And that was the rumours when we were on tour as well, that Andre Onana was pretty confident that he'd be back for the Arsenal game. Again, that doesn't fill me with much hope because he's going to be rusty if he's not been playing. He's had no pre-season games. He's going to be rusty. A keeper needs to play football to get into the swing of things. So that worries me, that could be his first game against Arsenal and he's got rustiness. Second of all, he doesn't fill me with much hope anyway because of the season he had last season, which wasn't good enough. And thirdly, like you said, Bayindir is even worse in my opinion. Bayindir I would play Tom Heaton over Bayindir, absolutely would. So, I mean, there's arguments whether you play Tom Heaton over Onana, considering how good he was in pre-season. But Bayindir would be bottom of my list. So, I mean, I do massively think we need to address the keeper situation. But you circle back to that question. If the budget's there, do you go for a keeper or do you go for a midfielder? A lot of people talking about how necessary it is we go for a goalkeeper in the chat. And things can get misconstrued. I tweeted this out earlier on Twitter. I tweeted out midfielder or a goalkeeper if you could only have one. And I replied to my own tweet and I said, as much as I would want both a midfielder and a goalkeeper, Andre Onana, despite how inconsistent he's been, Inter got to a Champions League final with Onana. I mean, Liverpool got to a Champions League final with Kelleher. It can be done. Granted, Kelleher did mess it up and he's the reason they didn't win it, but it can be done. You can get to a certain point with an unstable goalkeeper. You don't want to. I would absolutely rather get both. But I think games are won and lost in the midfield, and I think all the top teams' midfield are absolutely top draw, and that is a big weakness for Manchester United. And I've said for quite a long time now, United need a midfielder. Amrim's system needs a top-class midfielder in there. And I think that would cause us more issues in the long term over the course of a season, having a weak midfield, than having a weaker goalkeeper would. I still think both need addressing, but I think midfield is more of an issue for Manchester United. I think we could get by with Onana next season. Like I said, Onana was not good enough. He's not been good enough since he's come into United. But I do always think back to the fact he's not always been a poor goalkeeper. I mean, he's been in a Champions League final. He had a good reputation. Can he regain any of that form back? That's probably blind optimism, blind hope. But I do think the midfield absolutely needs attending to ASAP. They both do. But I just think the midfield will affect us more over the course of the season. Thank you for the compliment on the shirt, by the way. Appreciate that. Azza OW says, only thing to be cautious with Donnarumma is he seems to fall out with every club he's been at. No doubt in the calibre of player, but the personality might be an issue. He's Italian, isn't he? Italians have that emotion running through their veins. And I think it is something to note that he obviously has had a couple of issues. But Nigel, again, comes back with 26 million is a steal for that age. And if Amrim can talk to him and you can figure out his character, whether it is just a fiery personality that needs to be managed in a certain way, whether he's going to cause problems for the team or if he's just, really passionate about winning, they're the sort of things that you need to look at. It's like Osimhen fell out with Napoli, but in my opinion, Osimhen has a great character and I actually side with Osimhen more on that fallout. Just based off what was in the news, you never know fully, but based on what we were told, I think Osimhen was in the right to be frustrated. There can be two sides to every story. Alejandro Garnacho and Amrim fell out. I'm absolutely on Amorim's side, considering the actions that Garnacho has taken. So, you know, there's always two sides to every story, but you do have to look into that. And Amorim is absolutely clear that the character of a player has to be right to join Manchester United. So that's something, you know, that the team would have to do. But 26 million is a huge, huge steal, and it's something we should be looking at. Nick, considering how desperate we are for a keeper, and Donnarumma has the potential to be the next, you know, Van der Sar at Manchester United. He's that good. Like, he's so good. The quality of him is insane. I think one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And Man United haven't had one of the best goalkeepers in the world since David De Gea in 2017, 2018, when he was absolutely on fire. I would love to have a goalkeeper like that who you know you can absolutely rely on. And he's winning you games, winning you points. Like, if anything, Onana costs us points. It's very rare he wins us points. David De Gea back in the day would win us points, and other keepers do that. Alisson does that. You know, top keepers do that. Ederson's done that for City in the past. Nick Collins says Donnarumma is on 220 grand a week. My research says he's on 300 grand a week. He'd want comparable wages if he were here. I just about stomach him being on around 280 if that was including potential bonuses. Ian Tracy says we have to try for Donnarumma even though there's lots of moving parts. If we can do the finances involved, we could get a midfielder as well. And Soy Amjaka says, when Donnarumma left Milan, I remember articles discussing his attitude, dressing room problems, same rumour that is going on at PSG, and that worries me. It's definitely something to think about. And Agency says Donnarumma's salary is 12.73 million euros, which is 212 grand per week. Well, my research says he's on £300,000 a week. But you know, maybe with the conversion rates. Well, let me just go a little bit further on this. 1 second. See, a different website is saying what you're saying, which is 212 grand per week. Whatever it is, between it's 200 and 300 grand a week, he'd have to lower his wage to come to Manchester United. He would. Like, that would be a fact. It's whether he's willing to do so. And would the attitude issues put you off? Emi Martinez. Goalkeepers tend to have this, though, guys, and that's what you've got to think about. Emi Martinez has got that side to him that people don't like. He's got an ego. He's, you know, stuff's happened behind the scenes before. He's got a bit of an attitude, but he's a top-class keeper that a lot of people wanted to bring into Manchester United. Keepers tend to have quite big egos. Keepers tend to have big personalities. It's whether it's going to negatively affect the dressing room or not. And if Donnarumma is saving us points, being an absolutely class goalkeeper week in, week out, I'm not too bothered. As long as he's not negatively impacting the dressing room, as long as he works hard, plays as a top keeper, and, you know, his personality actually infects the team with, you know, that attitude to win. You know, Man United need a little bit of oomph in their team. They need a little bit of aggression. They need a little bit of snark. Like, they need that. We need to have winners in there. And if his attitude is channeled in the right way, it could be a positive. But people will only say that if you perform. He would have to perform, but he would perform because it's Donnarumma and his absolute quality. I personally would take the risk and go for it just because of how good he would be for this team. But how do we do it? How do we get a keeper and how do we get a midfielder? We've got to sell some players. And this is coming in from the selling side of things. So I'll bring in the Rasmus Hojlund stuff in a second. But on Baleba, it was put out there that Manchester United believe they can fund the Carlos Baleba deal by selling players quickly. And by selling players quickly, that would be the likes of Rasmus Hojlund, Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony Sancho. They're all players that Manchester United are actively trying to sell. I always forget about Malacia as well, but what really is that going to add to the transfer fund? We're not going to get a lot for him, are we? But then that gets combated by Stephen Railston from the MEN, put out there that Manchester United midfielder Toby Collier will not be considered as a make-weight in swap for Carlos Baleba, because there was a few murmurs that Toby Collier might be used to get that deal done. Previous experience playing at Brighton, that's where we bought him from, I'm pretty sure. So there's a few murmurs, but that got shut down by Stephen Railston. I don't think Toby Collier's going to be, used much in a swap deal. What we could do is get him on loan, maybe with even a buy option, and have a future, knowing that money's coming in next year off the instalments towards Baleba, because we will be paying instalments. And also, what we've got to do is shift Garnacho, shift Hojlund potentially, even though that's a little bit 50-50 at the moment, and Anthony and Sancho as well. There is a little bit more on Baleba. other news that came in is from Ben Jacobs. Brighton's preference is to keep Carlos Baleba until at least summer 26. Man United have made inquiries via intermediaries and were not quoted a price. The Brighton hierarchy believe Baleba can be worth as much as Moises Caicedo one day, who the club sold to Chelsea for 115 million. Now, Brighton are going to be playing coy. Brighton are going to be saying next summer, because they're right. If Baleba has another absolutely top season in the Premier League, they will be demanding around 115, 120 million for Baleba, just like they did with Caicedo, and they got it. But this is what these sort of players are going for nowadays. Caicedo went for 115 mil, Declan Rice went for 100 mil, but no one talks about their price tags because they've been absolutely fantastic. Look at Jude Bellingham, and okay, yeah, not quite the same position, but you know, both midfielders. Jude Bellingham went to Real Madrid for 100 million, wasn't it? Around that mark. Baleba, I think, has the potential to go into that category, go into a Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice, Moises Caicedo category. That is where I value Baleba at. He's absolutely fantastic, and he's 21 years old. He can do everything. His dribbling's fantastic. He's a ball carrier, which is exactly what United need. He's aggressive. He's a tackler. He's an engine. He gets around the pitch. You guys know, if you've been watching my shows, people call me delusional, but I was saying it's not delusional. We're Manchester United. Manchester United can do things that other clubs can't. We're the biggest club in England, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Act like it. I know we came 15th, but act like it. Do we want to be 15th, or do we want to be back at the top? Do we want to be back in Champions League? Do we want to be back top of the Premier League? Because if we want to do that, these are the type of players we should be going for. It's a lot of money. I personally think Brighton are putting it out there. No. But there would not be news coming in from David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano, Ben Jacobs, if there wasn't something to this story. Yes, they might be lining him up for next summer, but why would you even bother that much doing that now? Now, if you're Man United with a few weeks of the transfer window left, and you've got your first game of the season against Arsenal next week, why would you be focused on lining Baleba up for next year? We need a midfielder now, and we need a goalkeeper now. You'd be trying to do them deals first. I absolutely think there is something in Baleba. It's just whether Manchester United will pay. There's already news coming out that Brighton are looking at a Baleba replacement. Why would they be doing that if they weren't a little bit like maybe something could happen? People have got to remember that Brighton are a selling club. There's always a price. He's on 12.5 grand a week. Manchester United would not have made contact with his camp or Brighton if they didn't think there was something. I personally think if you go in, I think this summer, if the player pushes it and United go for it, you could maybe get him out of there for 90 million. And I think he's absolutely worth that. It's just whether Manchester United have the money to do so. But with instalments and doing it in a clever way, Garnacho going, Hojlund going, I think it could happen. And it would be absolutely unreal if it did. It would be absolutely unreal. And you're not going to be paying massive wages, which will save you, millions there as well. So it's absolutely not off. It's not, 90% club. It's not, this is going to happen. If you ask me now, do I think Baleba will happen this window? I'd probably say probably not. But I say probably not. I've been literally saying to all my friends behind the scenes, I have a feeling that Baleba's going to happen this summer. Maybe it's just because I want him so badly, I'm trying to talk myself into it. But look, I sat here on this show and said I wanted Cunha. I sat here on this show and said I wanted Mbumo. I didn't quite know if it was going to happen or think it was going to happen, but positive manifestation. Hopefully the same can happen with Baleba. Obviously, I'm not the only one. That the transfer targets that a lot of United fans wanted, but did we actually think we'd be able to pull it off? I didn't think we'd pull off both Cunha and Mbumo, never mind a striker. I think United wouldn't have explored Baleba if they couldn't do it financially. And they know that they've got some money coming into this club. Look at how Chelsea are advancing on Garnacho. It's going to be one to watch closely. And the fact that Brighton are looking at replacements, that there was a name out there that they're having on loan as well. Like, they just keep spawning these top-class midfielders out of nowhere. And it's like Manchester United should go for the replacement of Baleba, but it doesn't quite work like that. Brighton are a brilliant club at developing players. They give them the game time. There's not as much pressure there. You develop the player. Like, for example, when Baleba first came into Brighton, he probably wasn't ready for United right then. But they've developed him, and now he's ready. Like, United probably should be making these deals happen through their scouting network, going finding the next Baleba, the next Caicedo, and then putting them out on loan to clubs, that are like midway in the Premier League. United should be looking at doing that, getting these players in early and then loaning them out for the development. But that's something to think about in the future. United had just got the recruitment team together, everyone aligned on the same page. This transfer window is looking really good so far. Hopefully when the structure is more settled, we can start looking at doing things like that, one step at a time. But I think there's something in it. I would not shut it down. Tushar Balwell says, here is how to raise 100 million. Sell Garnacho for 40 mil, Collie for 10, Mainu for 40. I don't want to sell Mainu. That's one thing I'll shut down right now. I know there's been conversations about it. I do not want to sell Kobbie Mainu. I don't. Okay, yeah, he's not in the starting 11 right now, but he's 20 years old. And for me, he's one of the best talents that's come out of Carrington in a very, very long time. He knows what it is to be a Manchester United player. He's from the academy. Of course, players can't just get into the team if they're from the academy, but you have to keep that line alive, that bloodline from the academy to the first team has to be kept alive. Rashford's gone, Garnacho's gone, McTominay's gone. Kobbie Mainu is an example that players can make it from the academy. And he's not just there because of that, he's absolutely fantastic as well. People forgetting about how good this kid was at 18 years old. Got put into the first team by Ten Hag, was fantastic in a season where Manchester United struggled, turned up in an FA Cup final and was better than Rodri in an FA Cup final against Manchester City. And was not single-handedly won us that game, but was man of the match in that game. Got himself into the England team midway through a tournament and stayed in there right up until the final. He is a top player. I think people are writing him off because last season he was adjusting to the system. He had injuries. It's a transformative year for him. He's 20. Not everybody comes into the first team at 18, smashes it all the way up till the end of the career. There is going to be bumps along the road. And I think in years to come, we'll be looking at that first year under Amorim saying, do you remember when Kobbie Mainu had to adjust? And we'll probably be comparing it to new players coming in. Kobbie Mainu needed that year of adjustment, and then look at what he went on to do. I think if Amorim doesn't want a player, he'll make it clear. Amorim spoke highly of him. I think he has a plan for him. I personally think that Kobbie Mainu would be unbelievable next to Baleba. I think Baleba and Kobbie Mainu could be, if all goes well, Amorim's Premier League winning midfield pair in 3 or 4 years' time. We were talking about it on the forum chat earlier. Not now. I'm not delusional enough and stupid enough to think we could even compete for the Premier League now. We're miles off it. But in 3 or 4 years' time, that could be the duo that competes. I think Kobbie Mainu's that good, and I think him next to Baleba would be fantastic. Right now, you've got Bruno Fernandes, who is always going to play, and I personally think was needed for this transitional period. I know people talk about selling him, but I think he was needed for that transitional period. Your captain, to uphold them standards, to get everybody settled in. I think Bruno's not going to last forever. I think Mainu will be Bruno's successor in that pivot. And, Bruno is in his 30s now. He can still give it. Of course he can. I still think he's a top-class player, but he will eventually leave United. He nearly left this summer. Kobbie Mainu's 20. He'll definitely get game time still, maybe not starting every week. But you've got to have a squad, and I think a lot of people can learn a lot from Bruno. The new players coming in, you have to have that. You have to have someone to help the transition, someone to help the rebuild. And I think Bruno is that constant that is going to massively help the new players settle in and be that support system and be that captain that is going to take everyone to that next level. I do believe it. Look at the training he was doing with Joshua Zirkzee in the pre-season tour. Look at the way he's integrated the new signings, the way he speaks. The fact on tour he was still probably, contributing the most to the games. I think he's still needed, but he won't last forever. And Kobbie Mainu, I think, will be that successor. Bruno could go next year to Saudi. That offer will still be there. He might go the year after. But I think he was needed to transition that team this summer. And people will disagree with that. Of course they will. What I ask you is, would Sesko, Cunha and Mbeumo be as enticed to join United after they sold their best player and captain of last year, Bruno Fernandes? They might have still come, but I think the fact that we kept Bruno is a big selling factor to other players that I'm going to be playing with the best players. Even if you don't think that, he's renowned to be United's best player and in Europe renowned to be one of the best midfielders. And, it shows that ambition from United that they want to keep hold of their best players and move forward. I think that entices the likes of Acuna and Bruno, Sesko to join. It probably isn't, obviously, I'm not saying it's the deciding factor. Man United is bigger than any player, but it shows a sense of ambition, I think. Tushar says, Baleba at the same age is head and shoulders above Manu, so no, he won't be able to replace anyone in that midfield, bench player at best. I don't agree. I think Baleba is great. I think Manu's great. I don't think you have to. I think they can play together. Liam Winter says, Donnarumma, 26 million transfer fee for a 6-year deal, 200 grand a week and 16 million signing on fee, equivalent to 300 grand a week. Total fee, 42 million, amortised 7 million a year. Get it done. I don't think we'd give him a sign-on fee like that at all. And I don't think he'd sign 6 years. But obviously you can extend that contract down the line, but just to reiterate the point, the price is very good for a world-class keeper. Ryan Daniel says, sell Bruno and fund everything. It's not going to happen. LMP says, thoughts on new Carrington facilities. So happy that we are giving players no excuses going forward. Can't blame the environment now and the facilities. The development was long overdue. You know, you shouldn't clap a fish for swimming. Manchester United should have the best-in-class facilities. We are the best club in England, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Like, we should have them facilities. The fact we haven't had them, you know, was a bad look on the club. We have to be best in class in every department. I applaud INEOS for coming in and recognising that and doing something about it. And the new facilities look absolutely fantastic. I'm so excited, you know, to see more stuff behind the scenes in facilities like that. When we go to Carrington, you know, for press days, it'll be brilliant to see that. But that's what Manchester United should have had for a long time. So it'll be exciting, and hopefully it'll make a big difference. I've always said this, every area where you are will impact the team. You have to be best in class on every single level. Behind the scenes, CEO, sporting director, the actual players, the manager, the facilities, the medical department, the coaching staff, the staff in and around Manchester United, all but the behind the scenes stuff, the stadium, which is next on the list, everything. If you want to be the best club, you've got to be best in class in every single department. Mike T says, answering from earlier, I'd rather go for Donna this year and not Costa next year. I find Costa a bit overrated. Still better than Anana. Tushar also says, here how to raise 100 mil. I've done that one. Isaac says, any worries about AFCON? Obviously, if we do get Baleba, a lot of our players will be heading off to AFCON. But I think we've got players to cover that. You know, Ugate's there for cover. We've got cover at the back when Mazraoui goes. You know, you've got Mbumo and Dallo when Ahmad goes. You know, everyone said that we want a new keeper, so Onana's not as much of a worry. So I do think we have cover, even though we have a lot of players going to that competition. Look, Liverpool used to have Salah going there and Mane going there. You know, they're two of their best players. And they got by. Like, you can have cover, and you don't actually miss as many games as you think, in my opinion, from the past. Josh McDonald says, is Baleba really the answer? What happened to Douglas Luiz? Rumours. Douglas Luiz has gone so quiet. Joel Maro says, why would Donnarumma take a wage cut at United when he is leaving PSG because they don't want to pay him more? Add player/agent fees and the deal is 50. Sam Brock says, no offence, I'm not listening to a keeper about after Anana. Keep up the good work though. Sam, appreciate it. Nick Collins, thank you very much. We'll come back to some super chats in a minute. They're flying in. Thank you everyone for your contributions. We really do appreciate it. We've got more to get into, so I will come back to them. So thank you everyone for getting your chats in. This is your reminder as we move on with the show that watch along, David De Gea's return, Fiorentina versus Manchester United, Goldbridge watch along tomorrow. Make sure you tune in for that one. We will be live and it is a 12:45 kickoff, so it'll be amazing. And Bumo's first minutes on the Old Trafford pitch in red, Cunha's first minutes in the Old Trafford pitch in red, Sesko unveiled as well. We think like that's going to be great, so make sure you tune into that too. We've also got the build-up show happening, that'll be coming back to you. And Community Shield, Sunday, that's football, another cracking watch along, so make sure you head over to that on Sunday as well. Got loads of good content coming up, guys. Loads of good content. Thank you for sticking with us on that. Speaking of Sesko being unveiled on Saturday, it came out from Pletigol that Benjamin Sesko is currently undergoing his medical at Manchester United and is expected to sign his contract, which runs until 2030. So we kind of knew about that already, but off the back of that, we have a bit coming in on Rasmus Hojlund. So we know that Manchester United had to get Sesko over the line before they started having the difficult conversations with Rasmus Hojlund about his future, because United never had it absolutely guaranteed that they were going to end up getting Sesko. We wanted to get him. We absolutely wanted to go for a striker. That was obvious, and that has been United's focus ever since getting Mbeumo. But there could have been a scenario where we don't manage to get our targets and you are heading into the season, heading into the Arsenal game with Rasmus Hojlund as your striker. Joshua Zirkzee is currently injured. You had to keep him sweet just in case. Now they've signed, sealed, delivered Benjamin Sesko, Manchester United's new first choice striker. We're assuming it's going to be first choice striker for the money that we've paid anyway. He will be first choice. Now we've secured him, which, by the way, was Arsenal's first choice, Arteta's first choice striker. It was Berta that pushed Gyökeres because they were getting fed up of Leipzig's negotiations. Now we've got Sesko. The conversations with Hojlund are going to begin about his exit. Whether he will go still remains to be seen, but it feels like he will. So this was what Romano reposted just before I went live. Manchester United are set to discuss with Rasmus Hojlund about his future. AC Milan are aware of possible opportunities on initial loan with a heavy loan fee and salary covered. However, Rasmus Hojlund insists on staying at Manchester United and is not scared of competition. I understand why he wants to stay at Man United. He's a boyhood Manchester United fan. He probably feels like he's not had a fair shot. You know, Sesko's going to come in and he's going to get to play with Mbeumo, Cunha, Ahmad wing-back, Dorgu in his second season at wing-back, who is massively improved. You know, he's getting to play with a better team. That Amrim's had time to coach in pre-season and looks better. So you can understand why Hojlund might be a bit frustrated and wants to at least have a chance, because he came in his first season and, you know, was thrown into the deep end, was played every single week because Martial wasn't fit, when he didn't think he was going to be first choice at that stage, with very little football experience behind him. Then you go into the second season and, you know, he's playing with a front three that is, a team that is just so inconsistent, not creating chances, and the service was poor. But also, he didn't cover himself in glory either. His hold-up play was poor, his overall game was poor, he didn't bully defenders as much as he should do. He was oftentimes not a prominent figure up front, and rightly so, Manchester United fans, including myself, were really frustrated with his performances. So there's both sides to the story on this. The fact is, and people say it often, and it really frustrates me, you know, the United stands biased towards Hojlund, all that stuff. It's not true. Every single player I will judge on a very fair basis. Rasmus Hojlund was not good enough and has not been good enough. He's never justified his 70 million fee, which was definitely overinflated, and he still, I don't think he's good enough to be a Manchester United starting striker, and you cannot go into the season relying upon him. I absolutely understand that. However, on the other side of things, I think he was dealt a pretty bad hand. His development was handled very poorly by Manchester United. He was brought in with huge pressure when he should have been the second striker and developed. He's been overplayed for his age, and I think the amount of pressure that was put on his shoulders wasn't fair for a player of his experience and where he was at in his career. I do actually believe there is potential there. I do actually believe deep down there is a player there. I think his work ethic is great, and I think he's shown the right behaviours. However, that's not always the case, and sometimes it's the way the cookie crumbles. The absolute fact is that Sesko is coming into a way better environment. He's got a stable manager that is backed by the club. He's got Mbeumo and Cunha playing behind him, with, you know, a fit Mason Mount also there, Joshua Zirkzee there to accompany him, Ahmad at wing-back, Dorgu at wing-back in a better place. Like, he's going to have way more service than what Hojlund had. He's going to have a better, more stable team than what Hojlund had. However, can you afford to keep around Sesko, Hojlund and Zirkzee in a season where you don't have European football? Especially when you need money to bring in a Baleba and a keeper. You probably can't. So Hojlund is going to be sacrificed in that sense, because Sesko and Hojlund are of similar traits as a striker, and as Ben Jacobs has said on the show beforehand, Amorim and the coaching team prefer Zirkzee to Hojlund. They think he's going to really kick on next season. He's seen as a versatile type striker, different sort of mould to Benjamin Sesko, but both can be used. Zirkzee can play in the 10 as well as up front. He's in my opinion, at this moment in time, more developed, has more to his game. We saw it at the back end of last season, even in the Europa League final, when Xerxes wasn't even fit and he came on, it was like night and day. I do think Hojlund got swallowed up in all the noise, in all the pressure, and his confidence was on the floor. So, in my opinion, I do think that Xerxes is better than Hojlund, and I would be keeping Xerxes, and I don't think you can have three, really. And although, if money wasn't an object, I would actually want to keep Hojlund for another year just to see how he develops, because I do think there was a reason we bought him. But that fee and that price tag never did anything for him, and the way he was handled never did anything for him as well. But he's also got to look himself in the mirror. He wasn't good enough, and he should have done more. He said that himself. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We've got more news to bring in on that one as well. I won't even go into the fact that John Murto now works for Atalanta, and what fee did we pay to Atalanta for these players? But it's just one of them ones. It's just coincidence. But I've got something in red popping up on my screen right now, just to take us away from that Hojlund news for 1 minute. It kind of ties in with it. And it is from Ben Jacobs that Benjamin Sesko has completed his move to Manchester United and is now at Carrington for the opening of the first team training centre. How exciting is that? Absolutely brilliant stuff, and well worked and well played by Manchester United and the whole recruitment team and INEOS on this. I do have to, credit when it's due will be given. And I think we worked this deal fantastically. I think we played Newcastle super well. We got the price. We convinced Sesko to come to us. We then put the price in. We negotiated with Leipzig. We used Christopher Vivell to our best advantage. And we got this deal done quickly. And I give credit to that. And credit to Benjamin Sesko as well, who had the option to fly this morning, but instead chose to go last night because he wanted to get in as quick as possible. That is the type of hunger I want to see and mentality I want to see in the new striker that's coming into Manchester United. Shampers, everyone's saying in the chat. Exactly, get it in. Shampers, everyone type Shampers into the chat. I'm going to see if there's any videos or anything online of the new training ground or anything that we can see. I don't think there is quite. Oh, there's a picture. If anyone can find it, and if our producer Greg can find any pictures and bring them up on screen, I would absolutely love that. He's on it. He said he's on it. Carrington is open from Simon Stone. You can see it. You can actually see Rasmus Hojlund in the background there. Omar Brad is there. Jason Wilcox is there. Sir Jim is there. Sir Alex Ferguson is there. Ruben Amorim is there. Everyone's looking very smart. Or there's a picture of Ruben. There's a video of Ruben Amorim and Sir Alex Ferguson having a quick chat. That's brilliant to see. And there's a video of Sir Jim cutting the ribbon there, opening the new training centre. Honestly, as much as we've criticised certain decisions, and I think that was absolutely right at certain points in time, I do have to say the new training centre looks fantastic, and credit to the whole team behind the scenes for making that happen. Manchester United should have best in class, and it looks best in class. So well done on INEOS for making that happen. It's what Manchester United deserves and should have. And I really liked what Ruben Amorim said at the time. This symbolises a fresh start for us. Best in class facilities, best in class team, fresh season, best in class new signings. That is what Manchester United should be aiming for. Amorim's had a whole pre-season behind him now. I love the fact there's a Premier League behind Amorim in that picture. Are we foreshadowing? No, I'm not even getting ahead of myself there. I think United should be aiming for Champions League spots this season with the signings we're looking to get. But it really is exciting that to open the new training facilities as well, we now have our new striker joining us who comes in with massive expectation. But I think, and I hope, will work. I hope he works. I'm going to be completely honest. I would be lying if I said I was absolutely sure it was going to be successful. I think it's a huge risk, but I think it's a risk we had to take at this moment with the options that were available. And I think if it pays off, it'll be absolutely spectacular. I saw something earlier, and it was the last times that Manchester United and Newcastle United have competed for a striker have been Alan Shearer and Wayne Rooney, and both of them absolutely tore up the Premier League. Sesko has got big shoes to follow if he can get anywhere near them two. That would be absolutely unbelievable for Manchester United. But I again have to give credit to INEOS. And like I said, I will give credit all day long when it is deserved. For the price we actually ended up paying, I said on multiple shows, I thought he was overpriced. And, you know, it was looking like towards the 80 million side of things. They were looking at 90 million euros, around 80 million pounds. I thought, wow, that is a lot of money to be spending on Benjamin Sesko at 22 with a lack of Premier League experience. And I know he's experienced within the Red Bull group. He's got a bit of Champions League experience, but I thought, wow, that is a lot of money to be spending on a player who, don't get me wrong, you know, has scored goals, scored 39 goals in 87 games in all competitions in 2 seasons, but he's not absolutely, you know, had numbers off the scale, and he is still young and inexperienced. I thought it was a lot of money. However, when you look at it now, you've got Victor Gyökeres, 27 years old, £55 million. Hugo Ekitike, 23 years old, £69 million into Liverpool. Benjamin Sesko, 22 years old, £66.4 million. So I think £66.4 million for a 22-year-old who all the top clubs have chased. Chelsea wanted him, Arsenal wanted him, Newcastle wanted him. Very well scouted and known across Europe. United have scouted him for over 3 years. 6'5", fantastic in the air. Brian Mbeumo had the most expected crosses last season. That's a match made in heaven. Brian Mbeumo and Benjamin Sesko, most expected crosses, fantastic in the air and 6'5". Has the Premier League experience behind him in Mbeumo and Cunha. And the fact we've spent just around £65 million on Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko, brand new front three, I think it's a good price for a player of that quality, that potential, that stature at 22. I thought it was going to end up being 80. 66.4 million, I think is a good deal all round, especially when you look at the other figures of other strikers coming into the Premier League, what Liverpool paid for Ekitike, what Arsenal paid for Gyökeres, who is 5 years older than Benjamin Sesko. I mean, if I'm Arteta, especially after Gyökeres' last couple of performances, look, I'm not getting carried away. I know pre-season doesn't mean much, but I'm going to be honest, Gyökeres looks behind. He looks like he's been partying it up in Marbella. He looks behind. And I wanted Gyökeres, so I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, oh, Sesko's going to be much better than Gyökeres. But if he is, I mean, Arteta's going to be thinking, Sesko was my first choice. I pushed for Sesko. I was told it couldn't happen because Leipzig were really difficult to negotiate with money-wise. We've paid an extra 11.4 million for Sesko over Gyökeres, and he's got 5 years on him. Okay, yeah, Gyökeres has the experience, he has the numbers, they could get him in earlier, but I'm excited for Sesko now. And we're actually getting Sesko versus Gyökeres on opening day. Will Sesko start? Maybe not, but I think he might. I think he'll definitely come off the bench. I think he'll definitely come off the bench next week. He's been training in pre-season. He's fit. He's healthy. It's exciting. It really is exciting. You know, total career goals 90, way more. A lot of people keep comparing Sesko to Hojlund, and I was guilty of that a little bit because it is a risk. You know, bringing in a player for a big fee at a young age. Hojlund was 20, Sesko's 22. Paid more for Hojlund, which is crazy. But, you know, he's brought up in the Red Bull system. They've had great players come through there. Christopher Vivell has that connection. He's got Champions League experience. He's got 90 career goals in total. You know, Rasmus Hojlund had played half a season in Serie A. 39 goals for Leipzig and 21 in his last season. 6'5", leads the press super well. Presses hard, which is exactly what Amorim wants. Works hard. But let's just hope he adjusts to the Premier League. I would love that. Let's just hope he adjusts to the Premier League. I don't think he's absolutely 100% set that he's going to succeed. Whereas I think Acuna and Mbeumo, it'd be near enough impossible for them not to succeed. I've seen them successful in the Premier League. But sometimes you've got to take them risks. And when you've got them absolutes behind a Sesko in the Cunha and Mbeumo that are going to provide him with chances, are going to help him settle in, you'd like to think Sesko's in a good environment to really kick on. So I hope he does really well. I'm excited for him now. It'll be interesting to see what number he takes up. But yeah, all my support goes out to Sesko, and I hope this signing pays off. And brilliant that he's there on the opening of the new Carrington, which is our new future. Best in class. That's what we want. Shampers. Michael says, never leave Beth, queen of the Man United people. Thank you very much for that lovely super chat there. Matt says, maybe we can give Donnarumma a signing-on fee to make him drop his salary demands. Possible a solution given the transfer fee is low. Louis says, yeah, sure, Hojlund could have done more, but look at the amount of hate he gets. It's unfair. When you look at Atalanta, Rasmus Hojlund compared to United's Rasmus Hojlund, it is night and day. Like I said, I don't think we handled his journey in the right way. I've said that. Gabe says, good to see United on the up after some very dark times under Onana. Damien says, is Kone not our version of Baleba, undiscovered? I think that's a really good shout, Damien. He's obviously nowhere near the level of Baleba yet, but it'd be great to get him out on loan and help him develop. Like I was saying, develop them players. Kone's a great shout. Alex says, Beth, will Sesko start against Arsenal? He might. It depends how fit he is and how much training he has between now and the Arsenal game to get to grips with Amorim's system, his tactical directions and instructions. I personally think he won't start. I think we'll start maybe similar to we did at Everton, where we had Cunha and Mbeumo kind of rotating as that number 9 and Bruno a bit further forward. That's how I think we'll start, or maybe even Amad. Actually, scrap that. I've thought about something, because I don't think he'll want to drop Dalot to the bench and Amad has to play. I think he'll start with Dalot and Dorgu as wing backs, and I think he'll start with Amad in the 10, and then Cunha and Mbeumo sort of rotating as the 9. I think Sesko will come on off the bench, because against Arsenal, I think he'll want to play Dalot at wing back. However, as Sesko, learns the system, learns what Amorim wants, he's going to be starting games. Like, he will be starting. You've not gone and paid 66 million on a striker to not start a striker. He will start games. It'll be very interesting to see what Amorim does with the rest of the team when that happens. You can only play 11, and we've got a lot of competition now, which is a good thing. It's a great thing. People got to fight for the spots, and we love that. So that's how I think Amorim will start. I think Sesko will come off the bench. But if he does start, happy days, champers, as you say, and we'll be excited about it. But I don't think he will. Warwick Wilmot says, am I alone in thinking Tom Heaton is the best keeper we've got? Definitely not alone in that. Class of 99 says, surely it's time for the United stand to give INEOS credit. I just have all show long. In any walk of life, I will absolutely give credit and positivity where it's due. I always will do that with players, with the management, with anything. I always want to get excited about the positives. I always do. And it's good to actually have positives to get excited about. Caleb Baker says, I'm hesitant to let Hojlund go. Too many injuries hit in seasons lately. Andreas Goose says, he is not the future for us. It doesn't work in the system. I think you're talking about Manu there, but I actually do think he can work in the system. I think players can adjust. I think right now it's difficult for him. Last season it was difficult for him, but I think he will adjust. Jason Hanna says, why would Hojlund want to stay? He's going to be third choice striker behind Sesko and Xerxes. If he's just staying because it's Manchester United, that's the wrong mentality. Xerxes is versatile. He can play as a 10, but also with Hojlund, he might back himself that with Cunha and Mbeumo, he can start scoring goals. He might think, given the opportunity, he can get first spot again. You don't know about the mentality. He might have a mentality in the fact that he thinks he can actually become first choice striker again. But just to wrap up the Hojlund news, because we got distracted with the Carrington stuff, this is the Hojlund stuff as of now. The figure on the table for Rasmus Hojlund's potential loan move to AC Milan is a 3.5 million loan fee with an option to buy for 35. Manchester United are not an obstacle, but Hojlund is not yet convinced. Another one from Mate Moretto. AC Milan are in talks to sign Rasmus Hojlund on loan and have a buy option from Manchester United. The loan fee for the year is 5 to 6 million euros and the buy option is 35 to 45 million euros. So that's just a little bit in regarding the loan move. So the money is there for Manchester United. They might take a little hit, but if they can get him on loan, that gives us another year, and then the fee will probably balance the books. Because the amortisation right now, if we sold him right now for 30 million, it's going to give us a hit in terms of PSR and on the books. If we wait another year and he goes on loan but he's still a United player, next season it'll probably balance out the books in that way. So it's probably quite smart for Manchester United to do that. There was some comments about Rasmus Hojlund from Samuel Luckhurst in the MEN that I want to bring in, because I thought they were very, very harsh, I'm going to be honest. So the first one was, Alejandro Garnacho, Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot have all given Hojlund very little attention on the pitch. Players were genuinely reluctant to pass the ball to Hojlund in his first season, amid reservations about his hold-up play. In pre-season alone, Hojlund has vented at Dalot over a delayed pass in Atalanta, and he kicked the post after Patrick Dorgu he kicked the post after Patrick Dorgu kicked at goal. In pre-season alone, Hojlund has vented at Dalot over a purposely delayed pass, and in Atlanta, he kicked the post after Patrick Dorgu kicked at goal. I was just kind of got lost there in translation, but that was a comment that was made in the article. And then there was also, Hojlund was always destined to fail, switching to the same agency that represented Erik ten Hag, marked his card with some teammates. One United player shook their head at the mention of Hojlund. Another lamented how few tackles he won, his lack of pressing and aerial sickness. A senior figure at the club questioned Hojlund's work rate. Just on that, I am going to defend Hojlund here because he gets a lot of stick, and I understand he's nowhere near lived up to the expectations of a number 9 for United. But I don't think you can ever question Hojlund's work rate. And I thought his pressing was good. His hold-up play was very mixed and not good towards the end at all. And he didn't score nowhere near enough goals. And his general play, his play in general was not good enough. But to criticise his pressing, his work rate, I think is really, really poor, because I think that's where you couldn't fault Hojlund. I thought he worked really hard. I just don't think he was good enough. So, and also, as a striker, I would be annoyed if players didn't pass to me. There have been multiple occasions where Dalot should have crossed it earlier to him and he hasn't. You know, as a striker, you want to get that service. This article is saying that apparently Garnacho, Bruno and Dalot didn't even want to pass to him, which I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I thought you could see Bruno always actively trying to look for the striker. I just don't think our link-up play was good, and there probably was a lack of trust in the front line. There probably was. But to pin it all on Hojlund, I think is really, really unfair. He wasn't good enough. He's not been good enough, but there's going over the top, and I think you can't criticise that lad's work rate. You can't. He always works hard. He just had to be better. So I thought that was a little bit unfair. I'm going to be honest with you. Eamon says it's harsh because it's true. I think he wasn't good, but some of that is a bit OTT, in my opinion. That's just my opinion on that one. Last but not least to bring in here, this was another quote from the MEN, from the Samuel Luckhurst article. Manchester United players are convinced that they will have a successful first season under their head coach Ruben Amorim. A senior player has assured the squad is very optimistic and that there is a much better feel around the camp. That's a positive thing. That's a nice positive thing to read, and I believe in that. Based on, obviously we were in pre-season, we're speaking to people in and around the club, you see the players in the mix zone, you see what the feeling is, and you do interviews with players, you talk to them. You really do feel like there is a belief in that squad, in Ruben Amorim, in his system, and in what he's doing. And that's exciting because you need that belief going into the season. You really do. You need players to believe that Amorim is the guy and that they are good enough to compete and that team is going to compete. You need to have that feeling within the squad. So that's a nice thing to hear. There was also as well a little bit about in there. Let me just try and find it. Oh, that was it. I thought there was another little bit about Ruben Amorim, but there wasn't. Sambit says, Casemiro moves in slow-mo. We need to concentrate on that Baleba deal after we're done with the Ghana show and Scamcho. Garnacho should be on his way soon to Chelsea. Romano's been talking about that. He's agreed personal terms. Matter of time. For Garnacho, I just hope we get at least 50 million with add-ons. 40 million, 10 million add-ons, I'd take it. It's under his value, I believe, but we're at that point in the window now where we need the money. And we really need him gone. And we've kind of shown our hand by making it public that we don't want him. Jason Hanna says, why would Hojlund want to stay? He's going to be third choice striker behind Sesko and Xerxes. I've done that one. Thank you everyone so much for bringing in all of your chats. Everyone who's even getting the chats in the comments. I really do appreciate it. Harry's just said there, Hojlund can stay at backup. Rob Always United with some comments in there. Thank you everyone for getting your comments in. I really do appreciate it. A lot of people talking about Baleba and Donnarumma, how they want them both. I asked you to pick between a midfielder and a striker and people keep saying both. So maybe we'll run a poll on that next show, and if we can, I don't know, there might be some more reports that come out that kind of sway you to one side. At the moment, we're only in talks for a midfielder, and that is Baleba. So hopefully we can accelerate them. We've got Sesko signing today. We've got Carrington reopening. We've got loads of positivity. We've got loads of things to be excited about. And that excitement will continue into tomorrow, where 12:45 kickoff at Old Trafford, watch along on the United stand, Manchester United versus Fiorentina, and Bumo and Cunha in United shirts and Sesko being unveiled. What more do you want? I mean, midfielder and a goalkeeper would be great, but hopefully this transfer window keeps moving in a positive direction. Hopefully we see some positivity tomorrow. Warm welcome back for David De Gea as well, and everyone, can go into the season against Arsenal on a high. Well, Arsenal haven't even looked very good so far in pre-season, but like I said, you can't get carried away with pre-season. There are also some delete quotes that we literally didn't even have time to bring in, but I'm sure Mark will cover them when he's on the 8 p.m. show later. You can find them all on our socials as well, on the United Stand Twitter. They will be up there. Go and look at them on our X, but I'm sure Mark will discuss them later. We just had so much news and catching up to do. I couldn't quite get to him, but loads of stuff there on the keeper, on the feeling towards next season, on the midfield, on the strikers, and hopefully more stuff to come out in that gives us some positivity. But thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned for the watch along and also Community Shield on Sunday. Smash a like on the video if you've not already, and I will see you on the next one.